The first time it happened, Lila Savoy thought it was a prank. She stood behind the laptop that streamed the Bristow and Sons funeral home chapel to several dozen mourners scattered across 3 time zones. The casket up front bore Mrs. Dorothy Crenshaw, a retired schoolteacher with no close family left. Her late husband's nieces watched from Kansas and typed condolences into the scrolling chat while organ music hummed through tinny laptop speakers. The pandemic had pushed Lila to modernize. Live streaming let grieving families say goodbye without boarding planes. Just before the pastor lifted his Bible, 3 new messages appeared in the chat. Open the box. She's not gone. Hurry, all caps. No username she recognized. Trolls sometimes appeared at funerals, but the urgency prickled the back of her neck. She ignored it, focusing on repositioning a bouquet the florist had delivered half-wilted. When the service ended, she moved to wheel the casket toward the hearse-like elevator that led downstairs to the prep room. The chat window kept flashing. Mint, please open it now. The finality of the please made her glance at the coffin. Lila released the brakes and, hands trembling, undid the clasps. She told herself she was just double-checking her reconstruction work. Dorothy's nieces might request a final screenshot after all. The lid swung open. Instead of the quiet waxen stillness she expected, Dorothy's eyes snapped wide. Her lips quivered, releasing a thin sigh of air. Lila screamed. The chapel emptied except for a single camera still broadcasting a bewildering tableau to the internet. A funeral director fumbling for a pulse, a corpse coming back to life on the velvet lining, and 100 remote mourners gasping in chorus through their microphones. Paramedics arrived in 5 minutes. By then, Dorothy could move only her eyes. The rest of her body remained stiff as rigor mortis. Yet her heart monitor told a different story. Steady rhythm, oxygen saturation normal. They rushed the barely living woman to County General while police sealed off the funeral home. The detective assigned, Sergeant Milo Cantu, asked Lila the impossible question, "How often do your dead wake up?" "Never," Lila whispered, still shaking in her creaked pants suit. "This is the worst thing that's ever happened in my care." The coroner and hospital toxicologist found trace amounts of picrotoxin in Dorothy's blood, enough to paralyze her voluntary muscles without stopping autonomic functions. The dose would dissipate in 6 to 8 hours, they said. Dorothy, once extubated, confirmed she'd felt everything. The chilly embalming room, Lila's threading needles sewing her mouth shut, the lavender formaldehyde smell. She'd screamed inside her mind until darkness mercifully claimed her. Social media erupted. Not dead yet trended for 3 days. Lila wanted to crawl under a slab and disappear, but Bristow and Sons was her livelihood. Her family's for 5 generations. She issued a public apology video, voice breaking. "We followed all legal protocols. I examined the body and saw no vital signs. I am devastated we missed anything that could have saved Mrs. Dorothy." Behind the scenes, she scrubbed her procedures, reviewed camera footage, dismissed her part-time mortuary student for sloppy paperwork, anything to prove this disaster was a one-off. 2 weeks later, during the service for Arthur Buck Townsend, 84, Korean War vet, the chat pinged again. "Open the box. Alive! Alive! Alive!" Lila's breath stopped. The chapel was half full. Vaccinations had improved attendance. Yet the voices came through her earbuds, each urgent as sirens. She met Sergeant Cantu's eyes in the back row. He'd attended multiple services lately, hoping the first incident had been sabotage. They walked to the casket together. Buck's granddaughter sobbed, "What are you doing?" But Cantu raised his badge. Inside, Buck's eyes twitched beneath dry lids. A single tear dribbled down his temple. His chest shuddered once. Lila, that tearful granddaughter, and 50 live streamers screamed in unison. Again the toxin. Again a patient recovered after hours of torment. Public trust cratered. Families canceled upcoming funerals. The state licensing board opened an investigation. Cantu installed security cameras throughout the mortuary and confiscated all remaining embalming fluids, thinking someone might have tampered with them. Tests came back clean, while the news cycle mocked her. "Funeral parlor brings customers back to life, no refunds yet." Lila did what she'd done as a kid caught in Bristow and Son's labyrinthine basement after lights out. She explored. She replayed the live stream archives. The mysterious chat messages came from different user accounts, created minutes before each funeral, routed through VPNs. Whoever warned them knew the victims were alive and knew exactly when they'd be showcased to the world. She mapped the victims: Dorothy from Greenbrier Assisted Living, Buck from the same facility, and a third near miss, an elderly man the nursing staff claimed had died during the night, but whose distraught daughter demanded a hospital autopsy instead. Hospital pathologists found faint heartbeat moments before cutting. They chalked it up to equipment error. That was 3 from Greenbrier within a month. Lila drove there on a fog-soaked Tuesday, armed with a clipboard and polite determination. Greenbrier's manager, Odessa Fail, greeted her in the citrus-scented lobby. Odessa's smile was fixed, but her eyes darted. "Bristow and Sons always served our residents with dignity," she said. "But after recent issues, we're considering alternative arrangements." "Understandable," Lila replied. "I'm here to return some personal effects. May I speak with the night nurse on duty for Mrs. Crenshaw and Mr. Townsend?" Odessa hesitated. "Our staffing schedules are proprietary." "As is my reputation," Lila said, letting steel edge her voice. Odessa relented, escorting her to a break room where a slender nurse hunched over soup, earbuds in. His name tag read Francis. Francis flinched when they introduced him. Sweat stippled his upper lip. He insisted both patients were quite deceased when he summoned the on-call physician, Dr. Reeves. After a minute of questioning, he excused himself to the restroom and did not return. That night, another anonymous chat account messaged Lila directly. "Stop asking questions. Next time there won't be a warning." She forwarded the threat to Cantu, who promised to petition a judge for phone records. But bureaucracy crawled. 2 more funerals from Greenbrier appeared on Lila's calendar. Families insisted on using Bristow and Sons because, ironically, they trusted that if their loved ones were still alive, Lila would find out. She prepared like a field surgeon. Extra oxygen tanks, paramedics on standby, a county health official in the wings, and Sergeant Cantu, front row center. The deceased was Mrs. Eileen Song, stroke victim, age 89. Soft wailing filled the chapel. Lila began her welcome, hands folded to hide their shaking. Then, loud enough for the mic to capture, Cantu said, "We're doing this now," marched up and opened the casket before the eulogy. Gasps rippled. Eileen's face remained slack, her limbs pliable as any embalmed body, her heart monitor flatlined. "No miracle this time." Cantu stared at Lila, shrugging. "Either the killer skipped this one, or Eileen genuinely passed away." Relief washed through Lila so profoundly she nearly wept, but that relief curdled during the reception. An elderly man with tremors approached, identified himself as Dr. Reeves, Greenbrier's on-call physician, same man who'd signed Dorothy's and Buck's death certificates. He offered condolences, 2 long handshake eyes like polished stones. "You run a fine establishment, Miss Savoy," he said. "Unfortunate how sensationalism tarnishes essential work. We pronounce you embalm. The cycle goes on." Lila nodded, but inside she heard clanging alarms. Reeves departed, cane tapping. That evening she gathered every scrap she had. Timing of deaths, attending staff, supply deliveries to Greenbrier. One company kept appearing, Eternum Pharmaceuticals, vendor of geriatric neurology trials. Their delivery logs matched nights when residents died. Sergeant Cantu got a warrant. Police raided Greenbrier's storage closet and found 2 cases of unapproved vials labeled PX13. Chemical name bicuculin derivative, same family as picrotoxin. Enough to freeze 50 people in buried alive limbo. They arrested Francis, the night nurse, transferring a vial to a cooler bag behind the facility. Under interrogation, he collapsed into sobs. Yes, he admitted, he'd injected patients under Dr. Reeves' orders. Reeves claimed it was part of a cutting-edge brain activity study, induce deep paralysis, monitor neural patterns, restore them, all with family consent forms lost in clerical confusion. The study paid Francis thousands in hush money. When the first subject was sent to Bristow and Sons prematurely, Francis panicked and tipped the funeral home anonymously to save her, signing on as not yet gone. He watched, terrified, until Lila opened Dorothy's casket. The second time, guilt compelled him again, but Reeves caught him and threatened him, so for Eileen's song he remained silent. "Why send them to the funeral home at all?" Lila demanded when Cantu relayed the confession. "Reeves needed recorded EEG data," Cantu said. "But a real corpse gives no brain waves. Declaring them dead let him claim his drug-restored activity medical breakthrough. Headlines, big pharma, payoff. Except your cameras made all that evidence public." The district attorney filed charges for attempted murder, fraud, and elder abuse. Media attention shifted from blaming Lila to lauding her. But Lila couldn't sleep. 2 near-buried victims would recover. Yet what about others already interred before Dorothy? She reopened records, cross-referenched every Greenbrier death in the last 6 months. 27. 4 families had chosen cremation. Ashes don't talk. Panic hardened in her gut. Exhumations began at dawn under sodium floodlights and news helicopters. The first grave yielded only bones, verifying death. The second coffin, belonging to Marvin Ellis, 81, told a different tale. Fingernails shredded, mouth contorted in a final scream. The toxin had worn off underground. He'd awakened to suffocate in velvet darkness. By the 4th exhumation, Lila excused herself to vomit behind a marble angel. She knew she'd carry Marvin's ruined hands in her nightmares forever. In televised court hearings, Dr. Reeves pled not guilty, citing unpredictable drug interactions. He smirked when prosecutors mispronounced bicuccoline. Families cried behind masks. Francis, in orange jumpsuit, wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. Lila testified last. She described sewing Dorothy's mouth, the chat pleas, Buck's tear, Marvin's coffin scratches. She ended with, "Our job is to give dignified closure." Dr. Reeves turned death into a lab bench. Reporters scribbled. The judge denied Reeves bail. 3 months later, Bristow and Sons prepared for trial's 3rd day. A key toxicology witness when Lila received a plain envelope, no return address. Inside lay a USB stick and a note, "Show this, others will suffer." She plugged it into an air-gapped laptop. A video played. A dim storage room, rows of metal gurneys, elderly patients motionless, but eyes blinking. A voice off camera chiding. "Reeves was sloppy. We can do better." The camera lingered on a shipping label. Aeternum Pharmaceuticals Research Division, Haddon, Missouri. Reeves might have been the tip of a rotten spear. Lila forwarded the file to Cantu, but prosecutors urged caution. They had their hands full. She felt the old helplessness return until she remembered her live stream's reach. People watched funerals because they loved the truth of goodbye. Maybe they'd watch this too. The next morning, she scheduled a community update stream, promising clarity on the Greenbrier case. 10,000 viewers tuned in. Lila stood in the chapel beneath the stained glass she'd known since childhood. "I'm not here as a funeral director today," she began. "I'm here as a witness." She played the USB video, every grotesque second, then spoke names of the unseen, patient IDs she'd cross-matched with missing person bulletins from out-of-state nursing homes. She ended with, "If you recognize anyone, call Sergeant Milo Cantu. And to whoever filmed this, you're not burying secrets in coffins anymore." The stream went viral. Families across 3 states identified loved ones. Federal agents raided Aeternum's Haddon facility that same week and liberated 16 paralyzed seniors, branded test articles. The ring stretched far beyond Reeves, a corporate-funded study to simulate suspended animation, perfect for long-haul space travel or battlefield triage, depending on which pitch deck one read. Older adults were chosen as expendable data points. Public outrage boiled, Aeternum's stock tanked, executives lawyered up. Lila found herself on morning talk shows, dubbed the Mortician Whistleblower, a title she loathed but accepted if it meant light shone on the darkness. One crisp October afternoon, months after the last exhumation, Dorothy Crenshaw returned to Bristow and Sons, not in a coffin but in a wheelchair, clasping Lila's hands. Her recovery was slow. Neuropathy lingered, yet she insisted on visiting the chapel that had almost become her tomb. "I heard everything," Dorothy said, voice quavering but determined. "Your prayer, your music, you reached me." Lila swallowed hard. "I wish I'd reached you sooner." "You did," Dorothy said. "You opened the lid." Outside the stained glass window, maples burned red and gold, autumn's reminder that endings could be beautiful if honest. Dorothy turned her head toward the camera setup still anchored on its tripod. "Still streaming?" she asked. "Not today," Lila answered. "Some moments we keep for ourselves." They sat in silence, during the hush usually reserved for the dead. It felt different now, no longer a void but a pause vibrating with possibility. The licensing board cleared Bristow and Sons of wrongdoing. Business returned, albeit cautiously. Lila added a new protocol. Before embalming, she attached portable heart and EEG monitors for 90 minutes. Families appreciated the reassurance. Some directors called her paranoid. She called it progress. Sergeant Cantu visited during off-merge. "Sec holes on my phone 20?" leaning against the chapel doorway. "You could have let us handle that video," he said. "You were drowning in paperwork," Lila replied. "I used the only megaphone I have," he smiled. "Worked, didn't it? By the way, Francis took a plea. He'll testify against Eternum in federal court." "Good," Lila said, although no verdict would unscar what Marvin Ellis endured. One evening, exhausted after a double service, she logged onto the live stream to archive footage. A new private message popped up. "Thank you." No username, no profile image, just 2 words. She typed back, "Who is this?" The typing bubble blinked, vanished. No reply came. Lila stared at the empty chat box. It could have been Dorothy, a recovered patient, or some stranger she'd never meet. The ambiguity felt oddly comforting, like the hush after a chapel hymn. Not every riddle needed solving tonight. She closed the laptop, leaving the sanctuary dim except for candle sconces. Tomorrow would bring more farewells, more fragile reconciliations between life and death. But tonight, the stillness didn't feel like a threat. It felt alive, breathing softly around her, whispering that even in the business of endings, beginnings could be coaxed from a single act. Opening the lid,